Let's jump straight into the heart of it.
Yeah.
The engage.
Yes.
You showed up looking good, smelling nice, the whole 9 yards. And now
It's okay.
Mshauri careers, hanging with them now.
Welcome to this week's episode. This is part of our 3-part series where we are covering interview essentials. So what to do before, what to do during, and what to do after. In the last episode, we covered the before. So we covered research, we covered online and offline interviews, and how to prepare for the questions to expect and the questions to ask. So in today's episode, we're going to cover what to do during the interview, from the questions and how to respond to them, and just the fundamental things that you need to do in order to have a successful interview. My name is Modoni. You can call me M.
my name is Lily. You can call me Elle.
And together, we are M and L, aka Hanging with the Girls.
So let's jump straight into it. You arrive at the interview. Make sure you dress the part. We talked about this in our previous video and we gave you some guidelines on how to look professional. Carry that notebook, and even if you jump online, make sure that you're also dressed the part as soon as that camera turns on. Some of the other things to consider, especially if you're online, is if you have a distractor, like let's say that day for some reason you live in an apartment complex and they are mowing the lawn.
Or
And
there's a pump that's going to be turned on.
or there's construction and
Yes.
it's completely out of your control.
Yeah.
Make sure that you mention it and not the panelist asking you, what is that sound in the background?
Make sure your environment is very comfortable because, you know, with an online interview, it is you controlling your comfort. So have water close by. If your comfort drink is coffee, tea, make sure it's there. Nothing alcoholic, ladies and gentlemen. Keep it professional, but make sure all these things are there. Your chair is comfortable, your background is okay, and, you know, by the previous episode on how to prepare for the interview, you know, you already got this. You already have everything ready.
And even if you go in person, there's nothing wrong with requesting for a glass of water.
Please ask.
There's no shame in that.
Yeah.
And usually at any reception, they have these items for you, coffee, tea. So if that makes you put at ease, then ask for water.
Yeah.
Just prevent all sorts of distractors.
Make sure your environment is quiet and oops.
Like that.
Yeah.
Make sure
This
that
is
your
this is
phone
what
is
not
off.
to do.
Your phone's off, Mudani.
Yeah, it's off now. So let that not happen to you.
Let's talk about meals. Like when you're invited to an interview over a meal, because this one can be a bit tricky. You know, you have
Yes.
to articulate yourself while eating.
You have
It
your
can get a
notebook,
bit
you have what?
messy a bit.
But there are some fundamental things that if you apply, you can actually have a very successful over a meal interview. So the first one is the sort of meal to order. That's where it usually just falls apart. And the key things to stay away from are finger food. So don't order chicken wings, don't order fish,
Anything too saucy that will just slurp over your
don't
white
order
shirt.
soup, because you know what happens to soup as you're
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay away from soup.
stay away from soup. So what you should order is something that is dry but also works with the basic fork and knife. So rice,
Mashed potatoes.
mashed potatoes is good.
Fries are not fries. You can't go wrong with fries.
Yes, fries are fine. Chicken breast.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think those are good things. And then match the person's energy. Don't come in like you haven't eaten for 5 days and order everything on the menu, the most expensive thing.
Lobster with
Starter, main, dessert,
Yeah, salmon,
and your
and-
person is eating a starter.
Yeah.
And likely they're paying for that meal.
yeah.
So look at the menu, look at what they've ordered and match that price.
Insist that they order first. So you're there and you're at the heart of the interview. There are do's and don'ts. So let's start with the key one here, which is the sort of way to respond to questions. So it's a rule of thumb there. So there's a framework called STAR. I know you've heard of this, and we can't emphasize this enough. So STAR stands for situation, right? Which is, what is the problem that surrounded the context under which, you know, this question is coming from. So let's pick a question. So ask a question.
How did you go about building relationships with external stakeholders?
Good. Okay. So pick the situation now where you need to build relationships with stakeholders. So say a project was initiated by the CEO to grow sales. That's the situation. Talk about the task. The task is now what needed to be done. So say, because the CEO wanted us to grow revenue, we knew as a team that we would have to map where the market was growing, zero in on the products that we needed to sell, and then now roll out an outreach strategy. So that is the task.
Then we have the action.
Exactly. Now it's where you bring yourself in.
Which is the A here. And so what did you do? So you've mapped out these stakeholders, you've mapped out the types of engagement, and then you decide maybe what we're gonna do is hold a seminar and have all these people attend this seminar and have like a panel engagement on a specific question, have a question and answer. Now that is the action.
And bring yourself into it. So don't say, we decided the person being interviewed here is you, right?
Avoid we at all costs.
What did you do?
Use I, and even if it is a we, find a way to bring I in it. And the one thing that I see people failing to do, which is actually the biggest impact. You've talked about the situation, you've talked about the task, you've talked about the action, but then you fail to talk about the result. Why were you doing all
Exactly.
this?
Outcome.
At the end, did you end up increasing your stakeholder engagement? What ended up happening? What was the result of the seminar? What came out of it? And quantify it, show the impact, because that's ultimately what we're looking for.
And remember where you started. The situation is building revenue. And the question is how you've gone about building stakeholders and the like. So bring the results back to the original question so that it anchors and makes you that much more memorable to the person who's asking you these questions. And lessons learned, yeah. There are lessons you learned. So maybe there are mistakes you made. And pointing out mistakes is really important because it really brings out the authenticity in you. It just really makes you real. It helps the person interviewing you put you in their work environment and like you even more for the job. Yeah.
So one key don't, as Mudani has just run us through, don't be a perfectionist. Don't say that I would never have done it differently. Don't say, when you're asked the question, you know, what's one mistake that you've done in your career? Don't ever say, actually, nothing. I would do it all over again the same way if I could.
Yeah, you can't come off so arrogant and know-it-all-y. That's a word.
And one thing that you should not do is name dropping. Or if you do it in a classy way. Because what it can do is rub people the wrong way. So if you just start saying yes, and then the CEO of this and the CFO of that, and then I know this person, and I was invited because of my, it's good. You have the connections, but you don't necessarily have to name drop. And also read the room. If you see that your name dropping is sort of putting people at easy, just stop. But I would avoid it altogether.
Yeah.
And you can actually say what it is you're trying to say without name dropping. So one of the things that I see a lot of people struggling to do is to ask for clarification.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it. So for example, if I ask you a question and you're not sure what exactly I'm saying, what you shouldn't do is start talking for 30 minutes, throwing everything but the kitchen sink hoping it would stick,
Yeah.
you know,
I just admit
that I'm not sure.
I'm not conversant with that particular topic, with that particular system. So could you just guide me through how it works?
And we
Yeah.
will go to rephrase it. There's nothing wrong with it,
Yes.
you know?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong.
Do not lie.
Do not lie. Do not make up stuff that you think we want to hear, or someone else's stories. Maybe this is your mentor and you've decided their story is your story and you're going to tell it. Please don't lie.
One of the most important thing is also landing the plane. I mean, you can take off, you can cruise control.
Don't crash.
Just don't crash.
Yeah.
So how should you properly conclude an interview?
Conclude as you began. So you began with that approach that this is an engagement, it's a conversation. So end it that way. There's an opportunity for you to ask questions. If none was given to you, ask anyway. So, oh, this has been such an engaging discussion. I'm curious about a few things. Can I have at least 5 minutes to ask them? And the panel is like, yeah, please proceed. So remember, we already prepared you for this. So refer to our previous episode. Link is back here, and you'll see exactly what you need to do in order to make this part of the conversation successful.
And one very, very simple thing that actually goes a long way is thank the panel.
Yes.
Just say thank you, because it's an hour or an hour and a half that you guys have been sitting here and talking, and just thank them for their time. It is really something memorable that a lot of people forget what to do. We've just concluded the end of our second episode from our 3-part series. In episode 1, we talked about what to consider before the interview. Right now, we've just gone through a few steps on what to consider during the interview, from when you sit down to when you start to engage and to when you're coming to a close. And in our next episode, we'll be looking at what you can do after the interview. So stay tuned and see you there.